In professional sports, a franchise player is an athlete who is not simply the best player on their team, but one that the team can build their franchise around for the foreseeable future.
Welcome into a brand new edition of Franchise Players here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. You can catch us in the Triad every Thursday on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And you can hear us on terrestrial radio throughout the Triad every Friday, 5 p.m. on WWBG 1470 AM in Greensboro. If you missed it there, you can catch it on WTOB 980 AM, 96.7 FM in Winston-Salem. Loaded show today. David Glenn will stop through for his sports buffet, get us situated with the Canes, what they're doing. Can they pull this off against the Rangers, make the comeback? We'll talk about that and a little bit more. But first, I've got old friend of the program, Brandon Blakney, a.k.a. Brandon Lee TV, in the house. You know, it's the NBA playoffs, so I had to go get my guy that I trust with NBA, everything NBA. He'll be with us in 2 segments. He'll be starting us off, and then he'll be back after David Glenn comes through. What's up, Brandon, man? What's going on, man? I hadn't have you on in a minute.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me back. Always a pleasure to hop on with you on Tobacco Road Radio, sports radio out here, man. Been doing my thing with the YouTube, hosting Believe podcast. I know you're doing your thing with them as well.
Yeah.
I'm doing some fantasy football with IDP guys, so just staying busy, man. But definitely you guys check me out at Brandon Lee TV on all platforms.
For sure. For those that know, if you know, Brandon was really one of the first personalities here on Tobacco Road back in 2021. His Live with Brandon Blakney show. He was getting you dialed in with the top prep athletes in the area, college players in the area, coaches and stuff. So he was definitely a huge part of Tobacco Road. I typically go to Jalen Gilkey and I go to Brandon when it comes to NBA talks. I trust their opinion on NBA stuff. Since we're pre-taping, I can't really get into like the results of the next couple of nights in terms of the NBA playoffs because the Celtics are in the middle of trying to finish their series right now, and they probably will because Donovan Mitchell's not playing tonight. He's got a sore calf. It's Wednesday when we're taping this portion. So I wanted to shift over to the Hornets, first of all. The NBA draft lottery happened Sunday, I believe it was, Sunday afternoon. And once again, I think for the third year in a row, the team with the worst record did not get the number 1 overall pick. The Detroit Pistons, matter of fact, got pushed out. I was sitting there watching it, and I wasn't paying attention. The sound was down because it was Mother's Day. So I had my mother-in-law and my mom over here, and I was cooking for them and my wife. And the sound was down. I looked up and it said Hornets 6. And I was like, 6? They had like the third worst record in the league. Like, who pushed them out? And then I saw Atlanta was at number 1. I'm like, Atlanta was in the play-in. So I think it the 1. So my first question, because I'm looking at the whole field, right? And I'm like, this feels like the weakest draft since like the 2001 draft, probably 2000, like that area. Stromal Swift and those guys. It feels like that. Am I wrong? Like who in your eyes right now is the top pick in this NBA draft, or is there a consensus number 1?
Yeah, man, it's really not like a star-studded draft, especially like what we've grown accustomed to see in the last few years. Like, last year there was all the hype around Wemby and him being a generational talent. There's not that in this class. I think there will be a lot of quality role players in this group, not a whole lot of franchise guys, but guys that can contribute to winning teams or teams that are looking to rebuild. But looking at it, it could be another 7-foot-plus Frenchman going number 1. I think Alex Sarr, who's also from France, similar build to Victor Wembanyama. They actually measured his size, his body, his size, his strength, his weight to an 18-year-old Tyson Chandler when he declared for the draft. So a lot of similarities there with their measurements. But you look at this guy, elite defensive prospect. He can shoot the 3. He can handle the basketball. Like, he does a lot of really, really good things. At 7'1", has a long wingspan. I think he has the most upside in the draft. I think the Hawks are getting – I mean, the fact that they finessed the league, I don't know what they got on Commissioner Silver, but how they got the first pick. But they're bringing in Sarr. I think he's the unanimous pick. And I think he has the most upside. He's still a little bit of a project. Like, he's going to have to get stronger, get accustomed to the NBA game. But just from raw ability, being able to be 7'1", handle the rock, shoot the three. We saw him when they came and played the G League Ignite, and he dominated them. So I think it's a testament to France too in the global game and the way things are going. I mean, you look at it, and the top 2 picks could be from foreign lands. 3-4 of the top 6 could be foreign players. But yeah, I would go with Sarr as like, if there was a unanimous guy, not only because of the talent and the raw ability and what he could become, his ceiling, but also he feels an immediate need for the Hawks as well.
Follow him on Twitter /X, whatever the kids call it these days, at Brandon Lee TV. Brandon Blakney in the house, chopping up the NBA and the NBA draft lottery with the Hornets getting the 6th overall pick. I pulled up the NBA.com mock draft. It's a consensus mock draft, so they pulled from multiple places to get to here. And you're right, Alex Sarr, they've got him pretty much coming at number 1 with the Hawks. And as you look at this, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the way they have it mocked out. Pick 1, 2, 4, 5 are all foreign players. If I'm thinking, I'm gonna go ahead and call this out now. The U.S. Olympic team is not going to win the gold medal at the Olympics this year.
Oh, that's bold.
I mean,
I can't played on that one.
They just kind of put them together like they used to do back when we thought we could just put names in a hat and just draw them and just send them over there. I mean, you kind of made the point. Look at this draft order. Like, the world is caught up. They might have surpassed in some areas, and the old guys are going to play. And I can call them the old guys now. They're all in their mid-30s. Steph, LeBron, KD. Kawhi's on this team for some reason, even though he can't stay on the court, but he's on the U.S. Olympic team. I wonder how the Clippers feel about that.
They brought out the big guns.
Yeah, they brought out the big guns, but I'm afraid that I'm afraid that we're going to see like what happened in the first round of the NBA playoffs, where all of those dudes are now sitting at home, like all those the old guard. We're seeing a changing of the guard basically in the NBA to me, like right in front of our eyes. Where the last time we saw it, it's probably about 2002, 2003 when Jordan retired the final time. I think Barkley was gone or about to go. Pippen, Olajuwon was at the end. Patrick Ewing was in like Orlando or Seattle. I can't remember where he was at the very end. And it's kind of the same thing we're seeing now with LeBron and Steph and KD and Kawhi, Paul George. Like all these guys are in their mid to late 30s or whatnot. And we're seeing these young guns. Anthony Edwards, we'll get to him in just a bit. Donovan Mitchell, just dudes that are just kind of taking it over like right in front of our eyes. But who would you pick for the Hornets at number 6? They've got UConn guard Stephon Castle mocked to him there, but honestly, I would rather take the guy they've got sitting underneath them at number 7, Donovan Clingan from UConn, because I feel like the Hornets need a big man. They need like a rim protector because Mark Williams hasn't been able to be out there. Who would you go with at 6?
Yeah, man, I love the upside from Mark Williams. Like, he's a walking double-double when he's healthy, but like you said, he really hasn't been out there. Stephon Castle, I think, would be an exceptional pick. You're talking about a 3-and-D guy, another playmaker on the court next to Melo in that backcourt with Brandon Miller, who can be that lockdown perimeter defender. So I think he would be an exceptional choice. I do think Donovan Clingan fits a more immediate need. Teammates, Stephon Castle was also at UConn, so we're talking about 2 national champions there. But I like Clingan. I like his size. I like his mobility. He's an elite rim protector. He's a finisher. He's very skilled, a capable passer. I think he would fill an immediate role and a void that the Hornets have had since Al Jefferson retired, man, to be honest, just having that reliable low block scorer. Big Al was putting in that work. We thought it would be what, Nick Richards. We thought it would be Kai Jones. Crazy Kai kind of lost it. They brought in guys, Mark Williams. They've attempted to fill this void. And, they get the 6th pick. I feel like Wemby should be in Charlotte right now. Pop, they didn't want him to retire. So, they gave the Spurs and Pop his second wind. Because if they didn't have Wemby right now, Pop would be retired. I'm not.
Oh God, yeah, he'd be in France somewhere, like on a beach.
Yeah, on the beach, toes in the sand. He'd be on that Nick Saban diet.
Yeah, he's like, I got 5 rings. Like I'm one of the greatest. Man. Like, but
I think Donovan Clingan, though, I definitely think he's the more valuable pick there. If you're gonna go guard, why not just reach and grab Rob Dillingham, bring him home?
He's kind of undersized though, isn't he? Isn't he like 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah, but I mean, pairing him with 6'7" Melo, I mean, we're seeing that more so with 6'2" guard.
True.
You know, I
See,
mean,
I like Brandon. See, what is Brandon Miller? Is he a small forward or is he a shooting guard?
I think he's a 3. I think
Okay.
he's a 3, and I think you need him to play the 3, unless you go really, really big, because you need him to guard a 3. You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Like, you need him 6'7". You need him to be guarding like the best wing prospects out there.
Because see, I'm looking at like if he was a shooting guard, you create one of the tallest backcourts in the NBA with him and Melo. They're both 6'9". Like that, you just don't see that like anywhere really at any level. So I'm looking at like, can they put him at the 2? Now that makes sense if they draft somebody like Castle and move Melo to shooting guard, or just have them both playing point, kind of like that Carolina system where he's got 2 point guards out there. I
Yeah,
go with that with Miller at 3. What do you do with Miles? Because isn't Miles a 3?
I think you could play Miles at the 4.
Ooh,
I think you play him at the 4. I mean, he's shown the
actually,
capability of being able
yeah.
to guard 4s. He does his best scoring on 4s, man. He's a problem when you can have him at that hybrid 4 spot. And he's got the athleticism to block shots and rebound and play bigger than he is. I mean, Miles is a big dude.
Yeah, he
So,
is.
you're not really going to bully him down there. And you look at most of the 4s, he'll be giving up some inches, but he's not giving up much size the way the NBA is kind of structured now. And they could run and gun. This team needs to play fast with a playmaker like Melo. They need to get out in space and let him make plays. But it's also like they're kind of at a pivotal point. Maybe not this year, but like within the next couple of years, you got to decide: are you going to build this squad around Brandon Miller, or are you going to build this squad around Melo? And to me, it feels like Brandon Miller is the safe pick.
See, but they just gave Melo $260 million. Like that was like the last thing the Jordan crew did before they left the building.
And that's such a Charlotte franchise movie.
It's like, here's the bag, we're out, here we go, and like just left. Like,
and I mean, the guy hasn't seen the floor. And my thing with Melo is he has all the talent in the world. He will forever be linked with Ant Edwards, and I know we're gonna get to Ant-Man. And there was a time where it was a debate between these two guys about who was going to be that guy. I mean, we saw MVPs in Melo's future, and I'm not saying that he still can't get there, but I just need him to care a little bit more.
He's still in that immature phase, but then again, is he even 21?
I think he is 21.
I might just turn.
He
like
might be turning 21 this year. He's definitely still young, but he's also in his 3rd year in the league.
Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, I'm hoping with new head coach Charles Smith that, and now he's got some people to run with. And people laughed at me when I made this suggestion earlier in the year and even last year. I was like, I kind of look at the Hornets like Golden State. The first couple of years they had Steph Curry, like before they became like Golden State, where it was like him and Monta Ellis. Remember, and the conversation was like which one they should keep, and they traded Ellis, and everybody was mad that they traded Ellis because Steph Curry kept having ankle problems and kept missing games. And then it turned out they were right to keep Steph because Steph's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer and he's the greatest shooter of all time. But it's kind of similar here where I'm hearing rumblings about LaMelo, and I thought about this scenario, and I posed it to Jalen last week because I was like, the Hornets, to me, their roster, I'm looking at the roster just like up and down it, and I'm like, dang it, we were just in the lottery with Minnesota 3 years ago, like in the same boat, like picking with them, and now look at them. Like they've literally turned it around in a couple of years. We clowned the Rudy Gobert pick when it happened, or the trade when it happened. We're like 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert. That solidified their back line, like in the end, and they're going to be a force for the next 3, 4, 5 years, I guess. We're going to see Minnesota and Denver going back and forth, I think, a lot.
Years,
Don't forget about Memphis. Everybody's forgot about Memphis and Ja Morant not playing this year, really, because of injury and everything else was going on. And OKC is the youngest team in the league, and they're the one seed.
Ain't going anywhere.
They ain't going nowhere.
Get better. Yeah.
So if you're Steph Curry and you're looking around at this in the West. If the Warriors, I'm going to pose this question to you, Brandon. If the Warriors called the Charlotte Hornets tomorrow and they offered Steph Curry for LaMelo Ball and 4 future first-round picks, would you do it if you were Charlotte?
No.
Really? Steph's 35.
No, absolutely not. You're going to mortgage your franchise. It'd be different if they were in a position to win right now, but you're going to mortgage your future for the last couple of prime years for Steph Curry, and he's going to run off into the sunset. I mean, they're going to fill seats. They're going to have sold out crowds. They'll sell tickets. They'll make money. But
I think in the East, like next year, if they're all healthy, if you have a Steph Curry, Mark Williams, Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller, which is basically an upgraded Klay Thompson at this point to Steph, and a young bench, they're not a top 4 team in the East.
No,
really?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you look at the East. I wouldn't even with that team. I wouldn't put them above the Indiana Pacers. Like, I
Pacers are
mean,
surprising me a little bit, and they're the 6th seed, but they're surprising me. They were the
yeah.
highest scoring team in the
I
league
mean,
all year, but they don't play defense.
that team isn't better than Philly. That team isn't better than the Celtics. That team isn't better than the Miami Heat. That
I
team,
wouldn't, or the Knicks fully healthy.
they're not better than the Bucks fully healthy. Like,
Yeah.
that team, no, man. It
Well, I
would
wanted
be
to put it
fun
out
to
there.
watch.
Jalen squashed my dream too. He was just like, because I was like, you look at the roster with Charlotte, and you look at the Minnesota roster or the OKC roster, and it's just like, I've always felt if you've got 2 or 3 top 5 picks in your starting 5, then something needs to happen. You need to develop. Charlotte has technically 3 top 10 picks that Mark Williams is playing in their starting 5, and they have 2 top 3 picks playing in Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball, and they're all under the age of 25. So I'm like, am I taking crazy pills here? Like, should they not be on the same trajectory as like OKC? But
I mean, they should, because Melo has made that same jump kind of that Shea did in his first 3 years. He just hasn't been available.
They just ain't been out there. Like, and I think that's the frustrating part for Hornets fans. It's like we see OKC and Minnesota doing this, and the Knicks, and we're just the Knicks. Honestly, the Knicks don't have. Well, Jalen Brunson's turning into a superstar, but for the most part, I wouldn't call Dante DiVincenzo or Josh Hart superstars. But they've played together. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell their team, they've played together. Like, they know how to play with each other and off each other, which is huge in basketball. You don't need 3 top stars and a bunch of bench players to win in the NBA. Like, I think LeBron kind of broke the system when they did that in Miami, because now all those stars in that age bracket, Durant and all them guys, Paul George, Kawhi, they've all been chasing that really ever since. Right. And it's never worked really ever since. So I don't know. It's crazy. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to get DG in here, and then we're going to come back and finish the NBA talk, because I want to find out from you who's the current or the future face of the NBA, because we were talking about changing of the guard. And I want to get your thoughts on Caitlin Clark. She debuted for the Indiana Fever Tuesday night. Kind of a rough game, but she's a rookie. But I want to talk more about the perception she's getting on social media, because I feel like it's kind of like almost jealousy to a certain degree. And I know you're covering the WNBA exclusively on Live with Brandon Blakney on your channel, so I want to get your opinion on that more. And a little bit of Bronny James. We'll get into your boy's son here in just a bit. But coming up next, David Glenn will come in for the Sports Buffet. We'll talk Carolina Hurricanes and more in just a bit. You're listening to Franchise Players on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Franchise players are often referred to as the face of the franchise.
Welcome back into Franchise Players here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Shout out to Brandon Blakney. He'll be back on here in just a bit, talking a little bit more NBA news, hoops news, or whatnot. We get into Bronny James and a bunch of other stuff here in just a bit. Joining us now on his bi-weekly joint through Franchise Players here on Tobacco Road, it's David Glenn from the North Carolina Sports Network. What's going on, DG? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Des. Always good to be with you.
So we were just joking about it off camera before we came on, but it feels like, you're on every other week with us here on Franchise Players here across the Triad. And it feels like the in-between week, something happens with the ACC in terms of this expansion, FSU, Clemson suing, them countersuing, all this stuff going on. The spring meetings are going on this week or whatnot for the ACC. And of course, the week that I know I'm going to have you on this Friday, on Monday, WRL reports basically that the UNC Board of Trustees have met several times to discuss the future of athletics and a potential push to maybe leave the ACC due to potentially having budget deficits going forward after this year. How much of that do you believe in terms of North Carolina actually pushing to leave the ACC? And what is the difference here with UNC potentially hinting at the fact, or not, I shouldn't say UNC, members within UNC's Board of Trustees is probably the best way to put it. Certain members of UNC's Board of Trustees starting to put it out in the echo chamber that maybe they would like to explore leaving the ACC as well. What's the difference here with Carolina and what we've seen already with FSU and with Clemson echoing the same thing, just kind of maybe in a more boisterous, louder type of manner?
Yeah, there's several very important differences. Number one, the Florida State athletics community and the Clemson athletics community have decided collectively that it is worth taking the ACC to court, challenging the grant of rights, and trying to land in either the Big Ten or the SEC. That conversation has been had. That debate has been had in those two communities, and they have come to their crystal clear conclusion. They want to leave, and they're willing to let the legalese play out. Carolina is a much more divided group, whether it's the board of trustees, as you mentioned, where not every member thinks alike, or even if we polled the UNC fan base, there's going to be a lot of division between those who say, hey, the Tar Heels have to look out for themselves and find that bigger dollar payday as a member of the Big Ten or the SEC, versus others who say, wait a minute, you're just going to flush 70 plus years of ACC history and you're going to break up with NC State, another public university right down the road, and you're going to damage Duke and Wake Forest and not only their athletic programs, but obviously some rivalries that are celebrated in these parts. Carolina is not close to a consensus on where they want to go. Now, everybody's getting to voice their opinions, but whether it's the board of trustees or the UNC fan base in general, there is nothing close to a consensus. And UNC is going to do what everybody else is doing, and that is sit by and watch how do the Clemson and Florida State lawsuits and the ACC's reply lawsuits, how do those 4 lawsuits and others continue to play out? UNC is going to continue to be watching that rather than, say, filing a lawsuit of its own against the ACC, which is not going to happen anytime soon, if it ever happens at all.
Joining us here, David Glenn from the North Carolina Sports Network. You can follow him on Twitter/X at David Glenn Show. Can the ACC survive without North Carolina in it? Because really the most of this conversation when it comes to Clemson and Florida State, from what I've seen, is that, oh, well, if they want to leave, fine, we'll figure it out or whatnot. Carolina's a little different. Carolina is the ACC, in my opinion. Like, if you take Carolina out of the ACC, it's not really the ACC anymore. It's something else. And I'm trying to figure out, could they survive without them? And which conference would be a better fit for Carolina, the SEC or the Big Ten? Because that seems like that would be one of the two they go to. But it almost feels like it'd be in Carolina's best interest to prop up the ACC as the third big league and expand and become the first league to get to 24 teams or whatnot. Because that seems like where we're going to be heading anyway, eventually, because of football. Can the ACC survive without UNC in it? And can you picture a world where UNC is not in the ACC if the ACC is actually still alive?
Yeah, the ACC could survive in name. The Atlantic Coast, the Pac-12 name still exists, yeah. Even though 10 of the 12 members just are in the process of leaving. So you could have a second-tier conference called the Atlantic Coast Conference, and right now you'd argue it's already a second-tier conference financially behind the Big Ten and the SEC. But the Tar Heels are clearly a linchpin here, just as everybody is waiting to see. Hey, do Florida State and Clemson, if and when they leave, have to pay an extraordinary amount? Does that grant of rights hold? Does that exit fee hold? Which up to this point, at the ACC meetings, all the athletic directors were saying, we have no incentive to negotiate with Clemson or Florida State because we think those things are going to hold up legally. If it's really expensive for FSU and Clemson to leave, I think the ACC will proceed forward as a 16-member conference, which is what they are, obviously, when you count Notre Dame and the 3 incoming schools. If the Tar Heels became a third university to leave, and for those who don't know, the 3 most valuable, well, putting aside Notre Dame because they're an unusual member with their own football TV deal, putting aside the Irish, the 3 most desired brands in the ACC are FSU and Clemson because of their football followings, which matters enormously in today's world, and Carolina for a lot of reasons, decent enough football, extraordinarily strong basketball, huge, important brand, right? The Nike logo, top 10 finishes in the all-sports competition almost every single year. Michael Jordan, Lawrence Taylor, long-term, short-term, but also, importantly, whereas Clemson and Florida State, for example, would not add any new geography to the SEC. Right? The state of North Carolina, there are Carolina fans from coast to coast, as you know. This state would be new geography for either the Big Ten or the SEC. And we are one of the 8 most populous states in the entire country. That matters for TV eyeballs purposes. Oof. So when you add the athletics layer, the football layer, the all sports layer, the basketball layer, the tradition layer, the brand recognition layer, and the geography layer, some argue Carolina is the most valuable. Again, Notre Dame is also incredibly valuable as a brand in its own way. Some believe the Tar Heels would get an invitation from the Big Ten and the SEC even before the Seminoles and the Tigers would. But whereas the AD Bubba Cunningham has sounded like a very pro ACC guy all along, you have the UNC Board of Trustees arguing back and forth with very differing opinions about whether the Tar Heels should explore a jump somewhere. And then you have the state of North Carolina legislature already telling UNC, hey, if you try to leave the ACC, you got to come before us and justify it financially. You want to talk about mixed messages? They're coming from all directions if you're Bubba Cunningham, and UNC doesn't even have a full-time chancellor right now. So that makes it even more complicated.
I was going to ask you about that because I saw it. I didn't get a chance to really go in depth with it, but I know that there's like a bill or something that's going to the North Carolina legislative branch right now where they're going to try to basically, correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to try to force the in-state schools to play each other each year or something to that effect.
There's a couple bills. One, the proposal I think you're referring to basically would mandate that UNC and NC State, two big public universities in the big old ACC, have to frequently play once every 6 years. The other three public universities that are playing at the FBS football level: Charlotte 49ers, App State Mountaineers, ECU Pirates. Now, they're already on each other's schedules, but this proposal, which I don't think will become law, this proposal basically would mandate not only that State and Carolina continue to play each other, which is another reference, obviously, to somebody trying to leave the ACC, but it would require the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels to, at least on a regular rotation by law, to schedule the Pirates, the Mountaineers, and the 49ers. It's not at a vote yet. It's in the early stages. It probably won't even come to a vote. But I'm not aware of a law in the entire United States. I've seen proposals. I've seen bills proposed. I've never seen it voted into law that College A must play College B.
That was my question, because I was like, I've never heard of that before. I didn't even know you could do something like that.
It's almost usually political theater. It's people who want to give people reason to vote for them. Oh, he's going to bat for good old State University or ECU or Charlotte. It's political theater. That's what our government has come to in many ways these days, where people are these politicians are often, not always, but often far less interested in the substance of their proposal or whether it's necessary or whether it could possibly pass. And they're far more interested in just the whole the charade of the whole thing. They want people to know what they claim to be fighting for, even if there's little to no substance behind, in this case, a bill that probably won't ever get voted on.
It's almost like it's like a outside attempt to try to keep the ACC together with the thought that, well, if the ACC Big Four are all still here and playing each other, then it's less likely that everything crumbles around them or whatnot. But I'm still in my head, I'm still like, none of this matters unless they can prove the grant of rights is breakable. Like, it doesn't matter who all's barking at what, and we want more money, and it doesn't matter what school is.
And by the way, there is that other legislation where the state legislature is saying, hey, Carolina, if you want to leave, you got to come before us and present a financial proposal. So in other words, Florida State and Clemson can leave without their state's governments getting involved. Our state government has implied if anybody tries to leave the ACC, we're getting involved and you need our permit. Who sets the budget for these large public universities? The state legislature does.
Right.
So you have to listen to them. They're not your direct boss, but you're certainly associated with them in ways that private universities, obviously Duke and Wake, don't have to listen to the state legislature the way UNC and NC State have to deal with them on all sorts of issues all the time.
We ran out of time here. I was going to ask you some questions about Charlotte Hornets hiring assistant coach Charles Lee from the Celtics, but we'll just end it right here with the ACC talk. Me personally, I think the ACC needs to go on a expansion spree, basically, because it's going to happen eventually. Like, the other leagues are going to expand. Now, granted, they're running out of teams to go get. So that now they're all going to eventually shift their eyes to the ACC the closer we get to the end of that grant of rights deal and start plucking teams off of it. That's what happened to the Pac-12 when they let it expire. They didn't see a way to get more money place else, and the teams just started abandoning ship or whatnot. I say for the ACC, jump ahead of this right now. Like, use the stuff in front of you. Notre Dame cannot be higher than a 5th seed in the college football playoff because they are not officially in a conference. They can't win a conference championship. Use that to your advantage. They're on Peacock. Let them stay on Peacock. Let them still get their own money, but also allow them to come in and be a member, a full-fledged member of the ACC. The fact that they are in every sport but football is baffling to me. And the fact that it's in the contract that if they do join a league, the ACC is first. Like, they get first dibs. Push that envelope now while you've got it, while you've got a chance, and then go after. I'd rate the Big 12. Like, I mean, that's kind of where to go at this point. If you're the ACC, go get Kansas, go get some of these schools, Kansas State, like, build some of this up so it makes sense that you have schools in California, you know what I mean? And like SMU, make more sense where it's more of a national type of thing, and get to 24. Let's get to 24, 212 league divisions or whatever and figure it out. But that's a way to get some more money from the ACC. I mean, from the ESPN too. So I don't understand why they haven't really. Maybe they are talking about this behind closed doors. Maybe that's why Stanford and SMU and Cal ended up getting in, because they're the first wave of just adding the crumbs of what's left over. But it's a mess. The whole thing is a mess. It's horrible. So I know something's going to happen.
Anybody who tells you they know how it's going to end is lying to you, because the ACC could get bigger, the ACC could get smaller, the ACC could survive, the ACC could implode. Name, image, likeness is up for debate, like in front of the United States Congress right now. We've had more change in the last few years in college sports than we might have had in the previous 30 years combined. And that rapid pace of change is not going to stop anytime soon.
Follow him on Twitter/X at David Glenn Show. It's David Glenn from North Carolina Sports Network. Always a pleasure having you on, bro. We'll have you back on in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Des. Good to see you.
Coming up, Brandon Blakney will be back in the house. We'll talk some NBA news and notes. Why is Bronny James potentially going in the first round, and why is someone going to take him? We'll talk about that and much, much more here on Franchise Players here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Franchise players are often referred to as the face of the franchise.
Welcome back to Franchise Players here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Make sure you rate and subscribe our channel over on YouTube. We're trying to grow listeners there. We'll be back full throttle in the fall. Of course, you know our schedule kind of runs through May, really past the NBA Finals, and then we'll still have Out of Pocket with Michael Davis live at 12:30 p.m. throughout the weekdays to keep you covered during the summer, NBA free agency, and all that good stuff as well. Brandon Blakney in the house with me. Shout out to David Glenn, who came in just a bit ago and talked a little bit sports buffet style. I want to get back to the NBA. Of course, the NBA playoffs are going on. But since we're taping this, I wanted to make it more of a wider conversation on the NBA and what's going on right now. First off, Brandon, we mentioned a couple names in the first segment in the NBA, young guys that are kind of in the league, and there's a glut of young talent in the league right now. It's in really good hands. I'm actually really excited about the future of the NBA. Who's the current face of the league in your mind?
Currently, I mean, it's definitely still LeBron's in there. Like, if we're talking about just pure face of the league, there's nobody more popular in the league right now. They're pushing Luka, they're pushing Joker, of course, deservingly so. They're pushing Embiid. They're pushing Embiid, they're pushing Tatum, they're pushing a lot of guys, but it still all runs through LeBron at this point. If you're looking a little bit ahead, though,
who's the future face of the
league?
league?
The future face. I think if Ant-Man can stop being so Georgia on live TV, man,
I love it.
It's definitely Ant-Man, man. Like, he's got such a great personality. He's hilarious. The media loves him. You don't hear about him getting into any trouble or anything like that. He's just very genuine, and I think people recognize that and relate to that. But just on the court, man, I know, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts too on the Michael Jordan comparisons from Ant Edwards. I mean, you look at the tape, there's a lot of similarities. The last 3 games, he's been a little cold, but I think
they start doubling him though. They're like, oh, he's really good. Let's start doubling this kid.
They making things difficult for him out there, man. But just looking at his trajectory, like, this kid is 22 years old.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be the face of the league. I think Minnesota is going to continue to get better. They have a lot of young pieces. Jaden McDaniels is a great player, like a lot of young guys on that group. But Ant-Man's very personable. He's a brand. You know what I'm saying? I think that he's that next guy to step up and kind of took that mantle away from Ja, who they were trying to really give it to.
He had it. Yeah, he had it.
He had it. And he fumbled the bag there. But I think this Olympics is going to be a really coming out on an international stage, because I not only think Team USA is going to win the gold medal hands down. I think the biggest storyline outside of the games will be in those scrimmages, in those practices, when all those guys are looking at Edwards like, yo, we cannot guard this young boy. Like, I'm ready to hear about that.
So, okay. So the parallel, so you mentioned Michael Jordan, and a week or two ago, see, I hadn't really been watching Minnesota because their games are on late if they're on at all on TV.
I covered them in North Dakota while I was there.
You did.
Team, so
and you were telling us about him then, and we were just like, I mean, we can't see him. That's great. They're never on TV. Like, I don't know. Same with Joker. Like, I'm late to the party on Joker because I never watched Denver Nugget games. So I'm here now. I'm at the party now. And I compared him to Jordan last week. Like, it was the shock of like me seeing it because you know what it is? It's the fact that in today's league, nobody's that aggressive like as he is. Like that's the comparison to Jordan and Kobe, where like he don't care who's in front of him. He's gonna get by you, or he's gonna shoot over you, or make you look stupid, dunk on you, whatever. And he's two-way. He can play defense, and that kind of puts him in the category where you start talking about Mike and Kobe. This week, though, a comparison was made on, I think it was Tim Legler on First Take. He was like, I've been hearing the Jordan comparisons. Y'all need to stop it. He's really more like this. He compared him to Dwayne Wade. And I was like, you know what? Actually, his game is kind of more like Dwayne Wade because Dwayne had similarities to Jordan too, but it wasn't exactly like Jordan. Like I've been saying, okay, Kobe was the best imitation of Michael Jordan we've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like there's literally YouTube clips out there of Kobe doing the same move Jordan did, like the turnarounds and the dunks and that kind of stuff. Like, so I mean, it's him. He's the best imitation of Michael Jordan we've ever seen. Anthony Edwards looks like Michael Jordan's son. You know what I mean? Like he got a little bit of Mike, but he got a little bit of stank of his own that's on there. Like he shoots the mid range, which I love. Like it's a lost art. And like the dudes we admire, the dudes who get the most shine right now are the dudes that understand the mid range is where it's at. Like it's not just in the paint and threes. Like y'all got suckered into this Golden State Houston mentality, and it's changed the game. But the ones that are going to be next are the ones like Anthony Edwards that realize, hey, I can get to the cup anytime I want, or I'll take this 12-footer right here in your face anytime I want, and I can shoot the three. Jordan, he could shoot the three, but I actually saw a clip of him talking not that long ago where he was like, I can shoot the three. I've had games where I've shoot the three very well. I just choose not to do it because he said he realized if he was shooting the three a lot, then he was just standing behind the three-point line. He wasn't being active. He wasn't moving around. And he preferred to attack, and he wasn't attacking because he was waiting. So he didn't really prefer to shoot the three because of that. I was like, you know what? That makes a whole lot of sense. And it goes along with what we know about Michael Jordan. And it goes along with what we're seeing in the game today, where like it's literally four dudes standing around outside the 3-point line and they're just swinging it around until they catch the mismatch. Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I think Minnesota's so good, because they went old school, went like back to building big men in the paint. And for a while, they had Joker kind of like confused, but
he's
ever since Shaq told him to his face on Inside the NBA that he didn't think he deserved to win the MVP, he thought that Gilgeous-Alexander should have won it.
Yeah, I agree, though. I think Shea should have won it too.
Hey, that might be true, but he should have told Joker to his face. Like he literally, like he's interviewing him after the game. He's like, "Hey, Joker, I just want to let you know, congratulations on the MVP, but I don't think you should have won it. Should have been Shaq, but you know, anyway." And Joker's just like, I mean, that's your opinion. Like, that's what you want to, you know, whatever. And then now he's just gone off on 40-point bombs ever since.
Bro, averaging over 35. But I think the comparison to Dwayne Wade, I think makes a lot of sense with Ant-Man. Because so if you look at it, Tom Crean coached Victor Oladipo.
Yep.
He coached Dwayne Wade.
Yep.
He coached Ant Edwards at Georgia.
Yep.
There's a certain mold of player that really flourishes with Tom Crean. And he also said even back then that out of the three, like Wade was like, you know, out of a lot of people compare, like say Wade is a top 3 shooting guard. You know,
I was going to say he's probably number 3 in my mind behind Mike and Kobe as it stands right now.
Edwards was in college. Tom Crean said that he could be the best that he's ever coached out of those 3.
He can shoot the 3 better than all of them. He's just as good of a defender as Dwayne Wade from what I can see. He's almost, give him a couple of years, because Jordan didn't hit Jordan didn't peak Jordan until he was like 27, like 87, 88 that year when he won everything, like league MVP, defensive player of the year, dunk champ, first team offense and defense, all of it. He won all of it except for a title. You know, it's literally like the best individual season in NBA history. He averaged like 37 points a game or something crazy in that season, and he was leading the league in blocks for a guard. Like it's like he hit a level where even the players were like, he's the best player in the NBA. Like Magic, Bird, they're all like at microphones like, oh, Jordan's the best player in the NBA right now. Like he's figured it out. And like when Ant figures it out, I think he'll be there. People have forgotten about John Morant.
What have you done for me lately?
I'm not even gonna put Zion in this anymore because
it's
so sad, man. Like he had that great game against was it the Lakers in the play-in?
Yeah,
he got hurt right at the very end.
Yeah, he was killing.
It's just like, damn it, man. Like I refuse to put hope behind him figuring this out.
When he's on there, he's legit when he's on the court.
He's been in the league 4 years. Like he still hasn't figured out. He can't play at 260 or whatever it was. Barkley was talking about this. Moses Malone was the one that got him in shape because he said he showed up at the 76ers like at 300 pounds or something. Ooh. And he was like, why can't I get on the floor? Why can't I play as a rookie? And Moses was like, you're fat, son. You're fat and you're lazy. And he's like, well, will you help me lose weight? He's like, yeah, I'll help you. So he's like, we're going to lose 10 pounds. So we're going to get you to 290 or whatever. So he did that. And then Moses was like, all right, we're going to get you to 280. And he did that. And Carl's like, it helped because instead of him saying, I want you at 250 and me worrying about losing 50 pounds, he was having me lose 10 at a time. And he said he got to around 260 and he felt great. And it was starting to show he was playing more because Dr. J's still on the team. Moses Malone, this is the 83 championship team that he pretty much joined in 84. And he was like, let's lose 10 more. And he got him to 240. And Charles was like, I started feeling a little weaker when I got to 240. So Moses was like, okay, 250 is your playing weight. And they put him at like 250. And Charles was like, that's what I played at for most of my career was 250. And it was because I had somebody like Moses, a vet that I respected, 3-time league MVP or whatever, telling me, look, you're fat, you're lazy, you're not going to play unless you lose this weight. Kind of the same with Zion. Zion was positioned to be the face of the league coming in.
Yeah.
One overall pick. You're in New Orleans. I mean, and he's just, I don't know. And I've said it from the jump. You're not going to lose weight as you get older. You're going to gain weight. Trust me. You're going to gain weight as you get older. It's going to be harder to get it off. So real quick, wrap around before I get you out of here. Caitlin Clark. Give me your thoughts on Caitlin Clark. And is it good or bad for the NBA? Because it feels like the press is good. And we're starting to see stuff happening for the ladies. Like they're getting charter planes and stuff like that, which is nuts. They didn't have that before. Clark got like a $25 million Nike deal. I saw what's her name? Asia
Wilson.
Yeah. Talking about how she didn't really say that it was because Caitlin was white, but basically like, I've been here 10 years or however long it's been, and I don't have a shoe deal. Caitlin didn't even step on the floor yet, and she's got a shoe deal. I saw a lot of people take a certain amount of glee on Wednesday morning when I got on social media because Caitlin Clark had a bad opening night or whatever, 10 turnovers and yada, yada, yada. Is that really fair to her? Because it almost feels like part of America is hoping she fails, but then there's a larger part of America that hopes she succeeds, because if she succeeds, it shines a light on the whole league, which is where I am. Like, if she succeeds, it lifts the wave of everyone. But if she fails, then it's almost an indictment on the league. So it's like, how do you feel about, because I know you've been following Caitlin for years when she was at Iowa, and she basically turned women's college basketball into must-see TV over the past 2 years, her, South Carolina, and LSU. Your thoughts on the women's game, Caitlin Clark, where it's going, and where do you see her here in the next couple of years in the WNBA?
Yeah, man, I made a couple videos about it. There was a lot of pushback. Asia Wilson never really came out and said anything like disrespectful. And apparently her shoe, she has the A1 coming out, has been like in the works for a couple years now, apparently. But I mean, you're talking about, multiple time MVP, back-to-back WNBA champion. Like, she's hands down the best player in the league, face of the league. Caitlin Clark brought 2.1 million viewers to her debut. 700,000 people watched the WNBA finals last year.
It was what the game the other night was on Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. So it wasn't even on ESPN 2. So it wasn't even on regular ESPN. And it drew that
million. She's bringing
Carolina numbers.
Yeah, I mean, she's bringing all types of viewers. I think the league needs her to be a superstar to sustain this level of investments and profits. And we saw Caitlin Clark be the only WNBA player I've ever seen traveling with multiple bodyguards. Like, this is different right now. What we're seeing. I wouldn't even necessarily say she had a bad opening night. I mean, you look at when Wemby debuted at 7'4", Colin Cowherd was talking about it. Like, he had 15 points and 5 turnovers.
Yeah,
Caitlin had a 20 ball against the best defensive team in the WNBA.
I was going to say, in the Sun, they're like the best defensive team in the whole league. She started off her career against them.
Yeah, Dejanay Carrington is locked down. Like, she is tough. Caitlin got it going in the second half. She did have 10 turnovers. I'd like to see her and Aaliyah Boston build that chemistry, run that pick and roll a little bit more, but she'll figure it out, man. We're one game in. I think she has a lot of support, but at the same time, just like LeBron, not comparing them to, but just when you're at that level, you're going to have people that want to see you fail and think you're getting stuff you don't deserve.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say she had a solid debut. It'll get better. She'll keep getting better. From the first half to the second half was an incredible transition from her. But we got to remember, man, they don't have a whole summer. She was playing college basketball a month ago.
Yeah, literally. I was just thinking about that. I was like, wait a minute, the women's Final Four was like in April. This is May. Like what? So yeah, she had like 3 weeks to kind of get drafted, and they're right out there. Like I just didn't even think about that until you said it out loud.
Yeah.
Brandon Blakney joining us here, talking about NBA talk. Real quick, you brought up LeBron. Let's talk about LeBron James Jr., Bronny James. Why is this dude getting? I don't even know how to phrase this question. I don't even. You know where it's going. Like I don't even know how to phrase this question completely. Is he going in the first round? Is someone going to draft Bronny James in the first round? Because I was fine with everything until I found out he was 6'1". Like USC lied to everybody for a year, said he was 6'4". There are no shoes in the world that are going to make you 3 inches taller. Like you know what I mean? Like unless you're wearing flats or something. Like he's 6'4", and he comes to the combine at 6'1". Now, that would have looked different if he was 6'4" and had the 40-inch vertical and doing the shots and everything else. But I'm a Carolina fan. I've been listening for the past 2 years how RJ Davis isn't draftable because of his height. And he's a first-team All-American and an ACC Player of the Year. He's 6'1". He shoots 40% from three. Why is Bronny James going to get drafted, but RJ had to go back to school for a 5th year? I know the answer, but I just want to hear it.
I think, for one, RJ also wanted that NIL money. That boy bad.
Oh, he getting paid, yeah. Haynes and some other joints, yeah. He got to be at least that $2 million or whatever. So it wouldn't. I'm not saying he made a bad choice.
Yeah, he's going crazy.
Yeah,
but I mean, we know. LeBron is attached. Obviously, it's known that he really wants to play with Bronny, and if you take Bronny, you got a really good chance of landing James Sr.
Will the Lakers do it? Do you think will the Lakers draft Bronny second round?
I think so. I absolutely think
would
so.
too.
They've already come out and said they will do whatever it takes to make LeBron happy. They will absolutely draft Bronny, and it wouldn't be a terrible pick. I mean, there's not a whole lot of upside in the second round of this draft. I've even heard reports of Stephen A saying that the Mavericks would grab him before the Lakers could in the second round in an effort to pair LeBron with Luka and bring him back with Kyrie. I've seen reports of that. Absolutely think somebody will throw a second round pick at him, and it's like, why not? He's an elite defender. You know, the college career, the kid almost died. So the fact that he's still playing basketball to me is impressive.
You know the scenario. You know the scenario that's going to happen. He's going to get drafted by Cleveland, and then it's going to start this whole: does LeBron go home for one last ride, or does he stay in LA? That LeBron will do nothing by coincidence. Like I don't care what anybody says. Him going to that Cavaliers game the other night, sitting front row,
by
the announcer.
Bronny posting in the Ohio State gear.
I mean, come on. They're the most calculated family. Him, Savannah, they're the most calculated basketball family probably of all time. So like all that's by design, just to gauge the waters, in my opinion. Would I balk at LeBron going back to Cleveland for 2 years or whatever, finish his career to play with Bronny? Probably not. Especially with the team they have. If they can keep Donovan Mitchell and everybody else, that's an Eastern Conference final.
Yeah,
like right there. That's them in Boston, like for the next 2 years. But I'm almost at a point as a Laker fan where I kind of want them to move on to the next chapter because they did this with Kobe. Like Kobe's last 2 years, they gave him that money and they were horrible. They won like 20 games or whatever because they didn't have anything around Kobe and he was old. He was coming back from the Achilles and everything else. Yeah. But they paid him like $65 million or whatever, kind of like a thank you. I feel like they're about to do that to LeBron. Yeah. And they're going to waste AD's prime or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do about that. But that kind of leads me to my final question with you. Should LeBron leave LA? Should Durant push to leave Phoenix? And should Steph leave Golden State?
Nah, I just don't think for Durant there's a better situation out there right now. They just gotta they gotta build that roster.
He asked to go there. That's the funny part. Like, remember we were joking about this on Rundown last year where it was like Durant's made trade demands. He wants to go to Phoenix or Milwaukee. We're like, those are the number one seeds in the East and West right now. That's where he wants to go to the best teams. Oh, great.
They got rid of Ayton. They gutted their roster, and it's killing them right now. They have no depth. They don't have a point guard. They need a big. They need a point guard. They
Trade
need
him
to
away.
add some more pieces.
Yeah.
They
Phoenix would have been better off if they had kept that 2021 team that played Milwaukee in the finals with Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton and the bench, Cam
Bridges.
Johnson, Mikal Bridges, all them dudes are in Brooklyn right now. Yeah, they would have been better off. But
yeah, I think so. But I don't see a better situation for Steph.
Charlotte.
I just don't. Why do he want to win anything? Why do he want to win? I think those guys should stay put, man. The only one that I'm thinking should leave is Paul George, man. I would love to see him go to Philly and team up with Embiid.
He's back home. He's from LA.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I mean, sometimes the best place, you can't do what you need to do at home. Sometimes you got to move away and refocus.
These dudes need to stop moving around. Well, at least LeBron's been in LA now for 6 years or whatever. But Durant hasn't gotten past the second round of the playoffs, Eastern or Western Conference, since he left Golden State. Kawhi can't stay on the floor. Paul George, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, all them dudes with the Clippers right now. That should, in theory, work, but it hadn't. James Harden turned into playoff Harden. First round, just kind of disappeared magically, just went away. You're right with Phoenix; they're too thin. They don't have a bench, and they fired their coach. It was Frank Vogel. They fired Frank Vogel after 1 year.
I don't understand how he keeps getting hired. He's
right. He just won a ring though with the Lakers like 3 years ago, and then the Lakers fired him the next year. So it's like everybody's so fickle in terms of wanting to fire coaches so fast. But yeah, I agree. I don't think they should. Well, Durant, I think Durant's already damaged his legacy as is from the bouncing around. He should have just stayed in Golden State, to be honest. At this point, he'd probably have another 2 rings, at least one. They won one without him after he left. But I could see Steph and KD and them rebuilding around that. If he went anywhere else, I would imagine it might be back to Golden State. But because I don't think Klay's going to be there next year. I
don't think they're trying to pay him. Pretty much, other than Steph and Jonathan Kuminga, it feels like anybody could go.
Yeah, I don't think Draymond going to be there next year either. I think this year was the tipping point with all the stuff that was going on with him and ejections and all that stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. But we're out of time. We got to get up out of here. Shout out to Brandon Blakney coming in and joining us. You can follow him on X at Brandon Lee TV. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Over on YouTube, fresh content, especially on basketball over there all the time. Always a great content creator. Always cool for you coming through. Appreciate you coming through, bro.
Appreciate you having me, bro.
And we out, man. This is Franchise Players for the week ending May 16th, 2024. We'll be back next week with a new episode.